Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name is Kaylee.
And my name is Desi.
Be sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case, please report it to your local police and sheriff department.
Prison, a wonderful place that holds a lot of weird-ass people. I mean criminals. The most infamous of all prisons is Alcatraz. It closed its doors in 1963 and now operates as a tourist attraction for the ever-so-curious. Today we'll be diving into the mystery of the incredible Alcatraz prison break.
Background history about the Alcatraz prison. So the earliest record of private owners was 1846. A man by the name Julian Workman built a lighthouse on the Alcatraz Island. In 1850, President Millard Fillmore designated this island as a U.S. military reservation for the Mexican-American War. 1858, Fort Alcatraz was secured on the island and was used during the Civil War. 1868, it was officially used as a long-term detention facility for military prisoners. In 1907, it was used as a U.S. disciplinary barrack for World War I. And then in 1934, it opened as a federal maximum security prison. It was nicknamed The Rock, not to be confused with The Rock Johnson, particularly because it was on a 22-acre island that was 1.25 miles away from San Francisco. It was surrounded completely by water, and the water hovered around 48 to 54 degrees all year round. As time went on, the prison began to fall apart, and the budget to fix things was very limited. Because we know how our government always limits budget for buildings.
Because they suck.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck.
They don't, even when it comes to their prisons. Escape crew for this was John William Anglin and his younger brother Clarence Anglin, who were both in their early 30s at the time. They were serving time for robbing a bank together and even had cells next to each other. That's so cute though. Like, they got sentenced together, they were in cells next to each other. Then there was Frank Morris, who was abandoned as a child, put in foster care, and was in and out of prison since he was just 13 years old. He was in his mid-30s at the time, and he was also serving time for bank robbery. And the final member, who was Alan West, he was 33 at the time. West began serving time around the age of 14 and bounced around various federal prisons, and he was in for car theft.
The before. Alan West approached Frank Morris in early 1960 with a plan to escape the prison. Alan knew about a ventilator cover on cell block B that might not have been sealed over with concrete. This could have provided them with a way to get onto the roof of the prison from the inside. Alan also began working with the cell house maintenance crew. This gave him insight to the building's structure, layout, and weaknesses. September 1961, the Anglin brothers, Morris and West, all requested moves to cells that were close to each other in cell block B under the unsecured vent cover. Surprisingly enough, all these moves were approved.
Like, they didn't find that a little suspicious all these inmates were trying to move to the same cell block at the same time?
They probably did not care.
Probably not. But now we're gonna go into the actual plan that went down. Phase 1 was deception. So the men knew that they had to make it back to the mainland without being captured in the process, obviously. So in order to prevent that, they created painted dummy heads made from a plaster-like mix made of soap, concrete, and other materials, and even completed to look actual human hair, which is gross. They laid the heads in the beds with the guards, and this actually worked, as the guards said the prisoners still appeared to be asleep after the 7 a.m. bell went off. That is, until one of the guards went up to one of the beds and accidentally knocked fake head off it.
I bet that looked creepy.
Yeah, they're probably like, oh my god, is he dead?
Phase 2, breakout. After they laid the heads in the bed, they went working on busting out of the cell. All 4 cells had 5-inch by 9.5-inch ventilation grates in the back of the cell. The wall surrounding the grate was less than 6 inches thick. 4 months before this, Each prisoner drilled small, closely spaced holes around the cover of the grate. They used crude handmade tools such as spoons stolen from the kitchen and a drill from a vacuum cleaner motor. This made it possible to remove the entire small section of the wall around the vent, while they kept the sound covered up with their musical instruments.
Yeah, the prisoners crawled through to a utility corridor behind the cells that was left unguarded. From there, they were able to climb up to a hidden landing area above the sublock. They used this landing area for months as their secret planning/building spot. Now, with this though, Alan West never made it to this spot as he could not break through the last portion of the wall around the grate, which sucks for him because, he obviously didn't escape. So the men were able to climb to the ceiling via the pipe and reach an air vent. A sound was reported around 30 p.m. Coincidentally, the sound of the air vent cover being pushed off the roof. They then climbed down from the roof via a pipe, climbed the 15-foot fence, made their way to the north shore of the island.
Phase 3, escaping to the island of paradise. In their workshop, the inmates had built life preservers and a 6x-foot rubber raft. They made this by gathering 50 raincoats from around the prison and stitched them together using sewing. The raft was inflated using a converted musical instrument. How do you pronounce that?
Concertina.
A concertina ordered by Morris back in April. The plan was to sail across the San Francisco Bay in the raft to Angel Island, which was 2 miles north of Alcatraz Island. From there, they would sail again across Raccoon Strait, about a half-mile wide, which would then bring them to the mainland. There, they were supposed to steal a car and clothing. This was all informed by Alan West when he told the FBI about the entire plan. And if Alan West was not left, then we would have no idea about it.
No fucking clue.
Once the men were discovered missing, the prison went into lockdown as search began. The FBI, Coast Guard, and the Bureau of Prison Authorities did a wide-scale search for the prisoners, but they were never found.
Which is fucking wild.
From one of the most difficult prisons to escape.
No shit, that's the prison fucking are not supposed to be able to escape.
Yep, it's also a prison you don't get sent to.
No, very bad prison. But into the theory, of course, which theory number 1 is that they fucking died. The bay waters are very frigid, and there is a strong current that could have worked against escapees. Experts point out that the trio's goal of taking the raft to Angel Island would have been extremely difficult at this time, especially since they had paddles but no rudder. Additionally, a result of a reenactment of the escape carried out by Dutch scientists in a piece for PBS, it did not show good results. They built a raft similar to the one the escapees used, and they found that 2 of the men would have had to work to keep the raft inflated, which means only 1 man would be paddling this fucking raft, which is impossible. The weather would have been about 47 degrees Fahrenheit, and the water would have been 54 degrees.
That's cold.
It's very cold. So if they had sunk or went overboard, they would have only lasted 2 hours before they lost consciousness. Ironically enough, though, June 12th, bits of wood resembling a paddle were found near Angel Island, and the pieces were identified as belonging to the escapees. June 14th, bags made from raincoats were found halfway between Alcatraz and Angel Island. They contained evidence that belonged to the prisoners, such as a letter, a list of people to contact, and photos were found inside the bag. June 15th, a homemade life vest was found near Cronkite Beach, and a second life vest was found on June 22nd, found near the Alcatraz coast. Well, what gets even fucking weirder, July 1952, the SS Norafel spotted a body about 20 miles from Golden Gate Bridge, but they didn't report this into the fall, which, why? Why would they do that?
Right, that would have been very helpful in the investigation.
Yeah, like, what?
That person better be in big trouble.
The body was never recovered. So, like, what was the whole point of them telling him, like, oh, it was too late, the body's gone? But my first question to you is, do you think the men died on their journey to freedom?
So, it is possible that the men could have died on their way or journey to freedom. Obviously, there was a lot of odds stacked against them, such as the weather being cold and the waters being frigid. On top of that as well, the men were not really known to be swimmers. and also like the currents being strong, working against them, and the fact that two people would have to work to keep the raft inflated, and only one man was only able to paddle at that time. With all those odds, they're definitely not in their favor. So I think that it is very possible that the men could have died. And also on top of it, seeing that body that the SS Nora felt that spotted a body 20 miles from the Golden Gate Bridge could have definitely been evidence indicating that the men did die.
Or just a random body.
Too. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but why did they never find any bodies if they had died?
That is a really good question. So first of all, typically in this area, typically speaking, usually out of 2 to 3 bodies that go missing in this area are typically found. So you definitely would think that they would have found a body. But at the same time, there's always room for error to occur. And there is wildlife in the ocean. There are orca killer whales. There are sharks. So these men could have fell overboard and a shark could have eaten them. And obviously, if a shark got to them, you're not going to find their body. It's going to be gone.
Yeah, it's gonna be chump goodbye.
Yep, it's gonna be dinner.
Dinner for them. He's like, hey, free dinner for me tonight. I'll take it.
Now into theory number 2. They successfully escaped, and right now they're living in paradise on an island. They're probably dead now anyways by old age, but... So, a triathlon is held each year in which participants complete a 1.5 mile swim in the same exact waters around the same time of year the escape occurred. Jeff Harp, a security analyst for CBS, doesn't know any contestants who haven't been able to complete the swim, which means the escapees could have easily survived in this fucking raft. Most of the bodies who drown in the bay will float after a few days. And like we said, there was no bodies found. U.S. Marshal Michael Dyke ran a simulation that determined the escapees could have survived in the water for 2.5 hours if the raft, so that would have given them enough time. The same Dutch scientists who created the raft simulation also created another model in 2014. This model suggested that there would have been a window between 11:30 p.m. and 12 a.m. that would have been successful for the prisoners to reach mainland in the raft. They would have had to let the currents bring them to Horseshoe Bay instead of Angel Island. The model also suggests that the items thrown in the water at Horseshoe Bay would have flowed back to Angel Island once the tides reversed. They could have also pulled this off with a rush of adrenaline and then to survive. Do you think that they were successful to survive?
Considering there was no bodies found, I feel like they definitely were successful in some sort of way. Going based off the model that they created, it would make so much sense if that happened, even with the items being found in the water. I think they did it. I think they fucking bamboozled all of us. Everything points to the fact that they successfully did this. They didn't.
Although, yes, earlier I said that it's possible that they could have died at the same time, I am on the same page where I do feel like it is very likely that they could have survived, because there's multiple people who complete the triathlon every year during that time of year in those same waters and complete it successfully. And like, this is June. This isn't like December. It's like one of the times of the year where you can go swimming. With them being so successful getting out of the prison, that might have been enough adrenaline to really drive them to escape to the island, because they're like, oh my gosh, we actually escaped out of the building. We gotta go big.
And when you're cracked out on some fucking adrenaline and shit, yeah, they were. They just made bad life choices, you know?
Yeah.
But they were very intelligent.
Yeah, with their IQ, for sure. I feel like it made it possible.
Yeah, 100% for sure.
The only thing that I'm still wondering is, like, how, like, after they got to, like, the mainland and whatnot, how were they able to pull off getting clothes and getting a car without being detected?
I don't know. That's like what I'm confused about.
That's the one part that kind of just blows my mind.
Well, they may have had, like that list of people to contact and stuff. They may have had a contact that could get them that kind of stuff. Like passports and fake IDs. You know how people do that.
Right. You think they had additional help?
I think they did. They would have had to. Like, there's no way. You have to have all this planned out. You have to have, like, letters sent out to have all this planned out with car and clothing and identities. Yeah. Now, on to some interesting Reddit comments. The very first one, of course, that I came across is, well, that's a damn shame if it's true. All that work digging out and getting to shore only to be robbed and killed by a couple of owls. Which is funny. And, of course, somebody says, I'm pretty convinced they made it. Watched a documentary that showed a photo of the two brothers in South America where they bought a farm. The photo was sent to a childhood friend. The friend was able to explain how the boys must have got off the island. If I remember correctly, they grew up in New York, and in the summers they would swim out to where the boats were coming into the dock and tie ropes around the back of the boats and let it drag them back to shore. That's kind of interesting to know that, though. That would make it way more plausible.
For sure.
Yeah. And then another person says, I remember watching this on Unsolved Mysteries as a kid, and if I remember correctly, an inmate received a postcard that had said gone fishing. That was thought to be I feel like that. And what's the likelihood that the investigators find no bodies, though? Same question we have. This one's really funny, though. What I can't reconcile is how two lifelong repeat offender criminals just magically stopped breaking the law after escaping. Not even a speeding hit. Which is wild. I mean, you would think they would keep committing crimes, but I guess not.
Someone said they were hardly Ted Bundy. They just needed some money and cooked up a few harmless robberies to make it happen.
Yeah. This last one says, I think it's unlikely Morris and the Anglins survived the escape, but it is possible. John Paul Scott escaped in 1962 and managed to swim/float 3 miles to Fort Point. He was initially thought to be an attempted Golden Gate suicide. He made the swim in December and was caught due to hypothermia and exhaustion.
That's wild.
Yeah, so it's very possible. You just, your body does all these wonderful, crazy things, especially with the drug. But Alan West, the inmate left behind, cooperated with officials and finished his sentence across 3 different prisons. He was released in 1967, but was only free for 1 full year before landing himself concurrent sentences of 5 years, 1 to 3 years, and life for grand larceny and robbery. He died in 1978, rightfully so, in prison.
Yep, he couldn't stop robbing the banks like Payday 2.
No, he was mad because he didn't fucking get to escape with them, so he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna just go back to prison.
Hey, they got free meals, free room and board.
I know, right? They also get free education. Maybe not back then, but now they do.
And this one also let them play music at a certain hour.
They let them have jobs. They let them work for maintenance. Who does that?
To this day, we do not exactly know what happened to the crew of the prison break. The mystery remains hella unsolved. What do you think happened to them? Leave a comment down below.
And as always, thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and more. Remember to always keep your eyes open because you never know when someone's creeping.
Or when someone's gonna break out of Alcatraz again.
That'd be weird because Alcatraz is closed and that'd be a ghost.